Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing, at which we're going to hear some more evidence from those who were in the tower at the time of the fire. Yes, Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. I'm going to invite Mr. Bilal Rawat to call the next witness. Before I do, there is a correction to the record that I must make. On Thursday morning, I read the witness statement of Mr. Zaki Ahmed into the record, and he is the son of Mr. Shahid and Mrs. Saida Ahmed of flat 156 Grenfell Tower. At page 61 of the transcript, I said that Mr. Zaki Ahmed lived with his parents at Grenfell Tower until 2012. That was an error. I should have said that he lived there until April 2015, as his statement makes clear. That was my personal error, Mr. Chairman, and I apologise sincerely to the Ahmed family for it. I know how much work has gone in to these statements, and those who have provided them are entitled to have their evidence presented accurately. So I wish that to be recorded formally in the record.
Good. Thank you very much.
I shall now invite Mr. Rawat to call the next witness.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rawat.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can I call, please, Nadia Jafari?
Thank you.
Repeat after me. I swear by Allah that the evidence I shall give
I swear by Allah the evidence I shall give
will be the truth,
will be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but
Thank you very much. Sit down, make yourself comfortable, and then Mr. Rawat will have some questions. All right? Good. Yes, Mr. Rawat?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Jafari. Can I begin by asking you to give the inquiry your full name, please?
My name is Nadia Jafari.
First of all, I'd like to thank you not only for providing a written statement to the inquiry, but also for coming here today to give evidence to us. Your help is very much appreciated. We all understand that it will be very difficult for you to have to go back to the heartbreaking events of that night. There is no rush, and if at any time you would like a break, please let us know and we will stop. If I ask you a question which you don't understand, then please tell me and I'll try and ask you the question in a different way. As with everyone from the tower who's coming to give evidence in the next few days and weeks, you've confirmed that your evidence will be limited to phase 1 of the inquiry. And that means that my questions today will focus on the night of the fire. I won't be asking you about what the inquiry has called phase 2 issues. Right? Could we please have the first page of your statement, which is IWS 50683, page 1. Mr. Jafari, if I explain, this is the first page of the statement that you've made for the inquiry. You can see that it's come up on the monitor that's on the table, but it's also on the large screen that you see there. If you're more comfortable with paper, you will also find a copy of the statement in the bundle in front of you. That's at tab 1. I think you've already got it, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. If we go to the last page of that statement, which is page 9, please. We can see that the statement is dated the 1st of June 2018 and it's signed. Can you confirm, please, that that is your signature?
Yes.
Have you had a chance to go through your statement recently?
Yes.
And are the contents of the statement true?
Yes, except paragraph 5, there's a mistake.
All right, well, let's bring up paragraph 5, please. That's on page 2. The paragraph concerns problems with the windows, and we can see there that you say we complained many times to Notting Hill, and then you continue each time they would come and would fix it for that day, but then they would break again. You could hear everything outside. What correction would you like to make to paragraph 5?
We made a complaint to Notting Hill, but the Windows responsibility was TMO, not Notting Hill.
So when you refer there to each time they,
Is TMO.
so you're referring, when you say they, you're referring to the TMO,
Yes.
is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, subject to that correction, are the contents of your statement true?
Yes.
Before we go on and look further at the statement, I need to just put your exhibit into the record, and it's your exhibit NJ1, it's at IWS 50681, and that's a plan that shows your family home in the tower. You should have that at the next tab. Mr. Chairman, before I continue, can I also give a general warning to those present today? We are going to be looking at a number of CCTV stills and also at other photographs taken after the fire. I will give a specific warning when we get to the images concerned, but I want to mention it now because we're aware that images of this sort can be distressing to some.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Mr. Jafari, let's go back to the first page and paragraph 2, please. You've explained in that paragraph that in 2017, your family home was in flat 86 of Grenfell Tower. Is that right?
Yes.
And you lived there with your father, Ali Nadia Jafari,
Yes.
your mother, Fatma, and your sister, Maria.
Yes.
And that was on the 11th floor, wasn't it?
Yes.
Can you remember what year you moved into flat 86?
2003.
And your landlord was the Notting Hill Housing Association, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Can we look at your plan, please, which is IWS 50681-2. This is the outline of your flat, flat 86, and it was originally a 2-bedroom flat, but the Notting Hill Association turned it into a 3-bedroom flat, is that right?
Yes.
And so we can see there that there was a room for your parents, a room for yourself, and a room for your sister Maria.
Yes.
And that was, and then we had the living room. So if you wanted to get to the living room, how could you get into it?
You have to get through the kitchen, and there was a sliding door in between the kitchen and the living room.
So you can see that there's a wall, what looks like a wall between the kitchen and the living room.
Yes.
Was that where the sliding door was?
Yes.
And I think in your statement you explained that that sliding door was always kept open. Is that right?
Yes.
If you kept the door open, did you have anything over the doorway to separate the kitchen from the living room?
Yeah, a curtain. Net curtain.
And we can see that from that plan that the flat had 7 windows.
Yes.
We all know that there was a refurbishment of Grenfell Tower. When that refurbishment took place, were all the windows replaced?
Yes.
Can we go back then to your statement, IWS 50683, page 2, and paragraph 5, please. In your statement, you've mentioned that your family had problems with 2 windows that didn't close properly, and you discuss the first of these windows here in paragraph 5, and I'll just read it out. First window was in the kitchen. This would not close properly and could be blown open by strong wind. The window would fall open up to twice a day when it was windy. In order to try and stop the draft in the kitchen, we put a big pot in front of the main kitchen window to try and stop it blowing open. We complained many times to Notting Hill. Each time they, and your correction was that that's the TMO, would come and would fix it for that day, but then they would break again. You could hear everything outside. The wind came in and even the rain would come inside through the window. Can we just be clear? Because you've referred to main kitchen window. Was there just one kitchen window or was there 2?
Only one.
And was this window still causing problems in June 2017?
Yes.
Where would the wind come in?
It was like 2 slides, so from the big one.
So the wind would push part of the window open, is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah,
And then come in that way.
yeah.
Did you ever feel the wind coming in around the window frame?
When it was very windy, it would.
And would the rain come in through this window in the same way, because it would be pushed open and then the rain would
Yes.
come in that way?
Yes.
What you also say in your statement is that the kitchen window had a vent in it and also a fan.
Yes.
Just so that we can be clear, were those 2 different things?
Yeah.
So can you describe the vent to us, please?
It was kind of like plastic made of.
And where was it located in the window?
It was just on the right side of the window, on the top bit.
So there was a piece of plastic on the top left side of the
Yeah.
window. And what about the fan? Can you describe that, please?
It was just on the same place.
And was it an extractor fan?
Yes.
Did it have wires leading to it?
Yes.
And where did those wires go to?
It was connected underneath the cupboards in the kitchen.
And was the extractor fan actually fixed into the window itself?
Yes.
Can we look now at paragraph 6 on the same page, please? This is a second window that had problems, and you say the second window that had problems was in the living room. That window would not close properly, and if it was raining, water would pour into the living room, and we had to put towels to stop the water coming in. Let's go back to your plan, IWS 681, page 2. If we look at that, do you see where Maria's bedroom was? Next door to the living room. There's one living room window there that faces north in the same direction that Maria's window would face. And then there are 2 living room windows that would face east in the same direction that the kitchen window would face. Can you identify which window was the one that was causing the problems?
It was the north one, the Maria's room, the north side.
So the one that faced in the same direction as Maria's window?
Yeah.
And with that window, where would the water come in?
Just below the window, from underneath. So when you close the window just underneath, it wouldn't close properly.
So it would still come in through the frame, would it?
Yes.
And was that still a problem in June 2017?
Yeah, the water only comes when it was very heavy rain and windy that time.
Let's go back again to your statement, please. Same page, IWS 50683, page 2. And let's look at paragraph 7. The first sentence of that is, when they fitted the new windows, there were big problems as they did not seem to fit properly. Now, was this a problem with all of the windows that was fitted or just some of them?
Some of them.
And which ones had that problem?
The one in the living room and the one in the kitchen, and one was in the main bedroom.
In the main bedroom?
Yep.
And is that your parents' bedroom?
Yes.
So just so that we're clear, it's the two windows that we've already looked at.
Yep.
The one which let in water when it rained heavily, the kitchen window, and then the window in your parents' bedroom.
Yep.
Did you have any problems because of the way these windows had been fitted?
No.
Did you experience any drafts coming into the flat after the windows had been fitted?
No.
So when you say that they didn't seem to fit properly, was there what was the problem with the windows?
We couldn't able to close it, and the one in the kitchen, it would come out of its frame, it would fall onto you. So when we tried to open it, it would fall onto you backward. So it would come out from its frame. It had a frame, so it would come out from it.
And was it still doing that in June 2017?
Yes.
And so that's the kitchen window. Was that a problem with your parents' window?
No.
What problem was there with your parents' window?
We couldn't able to close it properly, to shut it like fully hard. We couldn't able to do that.
And the problem with the living room window was just water coming in, was it?
Yeah, water and wind.
Sorry, did you say water and wind?
Yeah.
So when it was that what happened when it was windy with that window?
We could hear sounds of wind, and wind would come inside the room.
And was it only through that window that wind was coming inside the room?
Yes.
Again, now on the same page, could we look, please, at paragraph 8? In that paragraph, you say, we also had problems with our front door, which should have been self-closing but was not. Notting Hill Housing Association was supposed to come and fix it, but they didn't. Although most flat doors were changed during the refurbishment, our door was not. It was a heavy wooden door and was not airtight. Before the fire, we could sometimes smell other people's cooking, but we couldn't hear noise from other flats. To shut the door properly, you had to pull it very hard. When my father came home, he would ask why the door would be open. Sometimes it would look like it was closed, but would not actually be closed. It would be possible to push it and open it. So, did you know whether the door was supposed to be self-closing?
Yes. Because I think, I don't remember when our housing officer, he came, and he also made the point, like why the door is not closing itself. So he said he will send someone to fix it.
And when was that? When was the last time someone told you they would send someone to fix it?
I'm not sure which month was it, but it was in 2017.
So what would you have to do to make sure the door was closed properly?
We had to push it hardly, and when the lock was clicked, and we were confirmed like it's been closed.
Now, do you remember if there were pipes in the corridor at all outside your flat?
There was.
And did you have any concerns about those pipes?
Me, myself, no, but my parents and my sister, they had.
And what were those concerns?
Because I think one of them was for the gas, I think they changed it, and they had a concern why they are in the corridor.
And when the refurbishment happened, do you remember whether a new boiler was fitted in your flat?
Yes.
And where was that boiler placed?
Just as you enter inside the house, in front door, it was just down there.
Do you remember whether the flat had any smoke alarms in it?
Yes.
And can you remember where those smoke alarms were?
Just in front of Maria's room.
So was that in the hallway?
Yeah, on the hallway, yeah.
And was that the only location of a smoke alarm?
Yes.
Do you remember whether the smoke alarm was working in June 2017?
Yes.
What was it that makes you say that it was working in June?
Sometimes whenever we cook, it was like kind of like smoky, so it would turn on.
I want now, just if I may, to take you to the 13th of June and the early part of the night. Can we look, please, at your statement? It's page 3, paragraph 10, please. Are you all right to go on, Miss Jafari? Are you happy to continue?
Yes.
Now, you say in the first sentence that we can see, on the night of the 13th of June, I was at home and I was in the living room, and you mentioned the time, it was about 9:30 p.m. with my family. Can you tell us, how did you know it was about 9:30 in the evening?
Because it was Ramadan, and it was a few minutes before breaking our fast.
So, and that's the iftar meal, is it?
Yes.
And what you go on to say is that shortly before we could smell smoke. So was it as you were breaking your fast that you began to smell smoke?
Before.
We checked everything in the flat to try and find what was burning, but we couldn't see anything that was. At that stage, I remember that my mother was sure that something was burning. It was like a wire burning smell, like something plastic. I checked everything, but there was nothing in our flat that was causing the smell. My father said he felt cold, so we had to close the windows. And stop there, but I want to ask you this, please. When you were checking inside your flat, did you actually see any smoke?
Inside our flat? No.
Yes. And you've described the smell as like a wire burning smell, like something
Yes.
plastic. Was it a very strong smell?
Not very much, but kind of.
And whereabouts in the flat were you aware of that smell?
All around the flat.
Did you check outside the front door of the flat to see whether the smell was coming from the landing?
We checked the front window, which was the west one, because the smell was coming from that side.
So it wasn't coming from the landing side?
No.
And when you experienced the smell, were all the windows of the flat closed?
Few of them were open, and the kitchen one was closed, but the living one was open.
And then you, because your father felt cold, that was when you then decided to close it, is that right?
Yes.
And were you able to find out at all where the smell was coming from?
No.
Did the smell disappear after a while, or was it still there when you went to bed that night?
It disappeared.
And once it had disappeared, can you remember how long it took to disappear?
No, I can't remember.
And once it did, there was no other smells or anything, or any smoke or anything after that, was there?
No.
Thank you. Can we, on the same page, please expand paragraphs 11 to 12? You've explained in your statement, Ms. Jafari, that night you slept in your parents' room, and that was because you'd had some surgery. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you go on to say that you went to sleep and you woke up about 12:55 when your sister Maria came into the room and said there was a fire. And you say that you remember it was this time because I called my brother Bashir around this time and I had checked my phone for the time. If we go, please, to paragraph 14. We can see there that as soon as Mira woke you up and told you there was a fire, she left the room. And you then looked out of the window which faces north where the school is, just so that we can be clear. Is this the window of your parents' bedroom that you were looking out of?
Yes.
You say, before the refurbishment, I would have been able to look out of the window and look down and see things outside easily. After the refurbishment, I couldn't because the windows were changed and it was hard to look out and down. They were further out, and now there was a big ledge so that we could not look down the side of the tower. So to look out of the window and down the tower, you would have to lean out quite a bit. Is that right?
Yes.
I could see tiny sparks which were in the air, and so I realised that there was a fire. Again, just so that we can be clear, were you seeing these were tiny sparks that you could see from your parents' bedroom window?
Yes.
Could you see any smoke at this time?
No.
Did you have any idea of where there might be a fire?
No.
And was your call to your brother Bashir before or after you saw these sparks?
Before.
What was the reason for your ringing Bashir?
Because my sister and my mother, they went downstairs and they said there is a fire.
So if we just take that down a little bit. When Maria came in to your room to wake you, did she tell you that she'd been outside the flat?
No, she said she's going.
Right, so can you just tell us a little bit more about what conversation you had with your sister Maria?
When my sister, she came to me and she said there's a fire, I took her as a joke and I said to go away. But later on, my mom, she quickly came and she said, I can see people outside and there's a fire brigade car as well outside and people are outside running. So my mom, she said, I will go outside, and my sister, she went with her. So my mom, she said to me, be quick, get your father and come out.
So, and did this conversation happen? Did they just come into the bedroom where you were sleeping to tell you all
Yes.
this? And did you understand that what your mother and Maria were going to do was to leave the flat and go outside?
Yeah, I just thought they're going outside to check. But the way my mom, she said to me, I realized there is something serious. So I quickly got up.
And what did your mother want you to do for your father?
She said, wake him up. She already went to him to wake him up, but he was in his room. But she came back to me and said to me, you get up and wake him up and come outside.
So your mother wanted you and your father to come down as well?
Yeah.
At that time, when you looked out of the window, you'd had a conversation with your mother and your sister. Could you smell anything at all in the room?
No.
Could you smell anything in the flat at all?
No, because my mom, she closed all the windows.
We go, please, to the next page. And let's look at paragraph 15, please. You say there that I then went into the third bedroom. That's on the plan, that's Maria's bedroom, is it?
Yes.
Where my father was sleeping, which is the small box room. When you arrived in that room, was your father still asleep or had he woken up?
He was waking up, but he was lying on the bed.
So he was just beginning to wake up, would that be?
No.
He was awake?
No, he was half asleep, half awake because he takes medicine. So he didn't realize what my mom said to him. So
I understand.
yeah,
What you say is he was slower to wake up because he'd taken some medication before going to bed. My father was 82 years old, had a heart problem and had diabetes. He had had a stent fitted into his artery. I spoke to my father and told him about the fire I had seen, and he got up quickly. We both went into the living room and we were standing near the middle window. We could feel the heat even though the window was closed. I looked through the middle window and the flame was just below the window. Can I just ask you some questions about that? You went into the living room with your father. Where were your sister Maria and your mother at that point?
they went outside to the ground floor.
So they had already left the flat?
Yeah.
And you mentioned a few moments ago that your mother had closed the windows. So were all the windows in the living room closed?
Yes.
Was there any smoke coming into the living room from outside?
No.
And when you refer to the middle window, we can look at your plan if that will help you, but are you speaking of one of the windows that faced in the same direction as the kitchen window, that
Yes.
faced east?
Yes.
And you say at the last part of that paragraph that the flame was just below the window. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you were able to see at that time?
Yeah, because I remember me and my father, we both bent ourselves on the ledge of the window, and we were trying to look outside, but we couldn't able to see it, and the window was very hot. And as I touched it, it was hot, and I said to my father, I think the fire is just below the window. And I bent myself more further, and I saw the fire was just behind the window, underneath it.
And how close was it to the frame of the window?
Yes.
Can you say how close it was? Was it?
2 inches or below the window, yeah.
And did you see actual flames?
Yes.
Did you see any smoke?
No.
If we go now to paragraph 17 on the same page, please. If we just put that paragraph into context, what you say, just, Ms. Jafari, is that you told your father to go to the washroom. Is that right?
Yes.
And you continue in this paragraph that when, whilst he was in the toilet, you noticed the fire was getting higher. And while I was standing near the kitchen window waiting for my father, the fire reached our flat. Now, so had you moved from whilst your father was in the bathroom or the toilet, you moved from the living room to the kitchen?
Yeah, I checked the windows and I saw the fire. So my mom's iPad was on the ledge of the window, so I picked that up and took that to I placed it on the sofa, and I went to the kitchen.
So when you first moved into the kitchen, was there any smoke coming into the kitchen at all?
No.
Could you see the flames outside the kitchen window at all?
No.
And just again, so that we can be clear, was the kitchen window open or closed?
It was closed.
You say in that sentence that the fire came through the small circular vent at the top of the window.
Yes.
When you say fire, do you mean smoke or flames?
Flames.
So was that the first thing that you saw coming in?
Yeah.
Can you remember seeing any smoke at all?
Afterward, yes.
So it was flames first?
Yeah, when they broke that fan.
Well, I'll take it in stages, and I'll ask you about the fan in a moment. When you saw the flames, could you smell anything at that time?
Like wire burning, something like plastic burning.
Was it the same smell that you'd smelt earlier in the night? Was it a similar smell?
can't remember, but it was something like plastic was burning.
And was it a strong smell or was it a light smell?
Light.
Could you tell where it was coming from?
From the kitchen window and from that vent and the fan.
So what were the flames doing to that vent?
As it entered, it was like it bloated up when the fire came around that fan. So that fan came out. I'll come back to the fan if I may, but can you remember what happened to the vent? Because what you've said is that the fire came through the small circular vent. So Yeah.
can you just help us please, with what did the fire do to that small circular vent?
It was kind of like pushing it inside the window. So it was very quick. So as I saw it, the fan, it came inside the kitchen. And around the frame of the window, it was fire. And the big side of the window, it blew up inside the kitchen.
Again, I'll come back to that in a moment if I may, but can I ask you this? You've said that there was a smoke alarm outside Maria's bedroom.
Yes.
What was happening with that smoke alarm at this time?
It wasn't on that time.
We look at the next paragraph, please, paragraph 18. You begin that paragraph, Miss Jafari, with the sentence, "I noticed the wires started to burn near to the fan in the kitchen window." Now, I think you've told us already that the fan was something different to the vent, wasn't it?
I think the fan and the vent both were together. I don't know how to explain that, but it was both of them stuck together.
They were near each other. Would it be fair to say that they were near each other in the window?
Yeah.
And did the flames reach the fan at the same time as they reached the vent?
Yes.
When you say that the wires started to burn near to the fan, can you remember what was it that was causing the wires to burn?
The fire. Because when the fan was broken, so the wire was stuck to it, so it started to burn.
Continue in that paragraph. "I knocked on the toilet door and told my father that the fire was in the kitchen. My father came out quickly, and as they looked round the door, the glass in the kitchen window smashed from the fire, and the flames then covered the entire window area. The whole window in the kitchen broke in two. The vent completely collapsed. I saw the glass break and the fire come through as I was standing there. The plastic around the window was burning." And then you continue, if I read a little further down. "The kitchen window also had curtains and they caught fire. Where the sliding doors were, we had fitted light curtains which also caught fire. Below the kitchen window, we had a small fridge and a TV." Now, again, if I take that in stages, please. You obviously left the kitchen to go and get your father. And did the two of you just come and then stand at the doorway to the kitchen looking in?
Yes.
And was it after you had gone to get your father and come back that you saw the glass in the kitchen window smash?
Yes.
Can you help us with this, please? How much time passed between your first noticing fire outside the kitchen window and the glass smashing?
Not very much. Maybe 1 to 2 minutes.
And what could you see outside the kitchen window just before the glass smashed?
I didn't see anything. I just grabbed a few of the rugs from the floor and I just panicked.
And when you say that the whole window broke in two, are you referring to the glass in the window?
I Actually, the whole frame, it fall out. The normally which would open by the wind. So that whole frame came out.
And was it the frame coming out that caused the glass to break?
I think so. I didn't see how it breaks, but because I went to my father. But when I came back to the kitchen, the frame was on the floor, on the shelf on the top work.
So would it be fair to say that what you saw was the fire coming in through the vent?
The vent and the fan, yeah.
And the fan?
Yeah.
You then went to get to your father?
Yeah.
And when you came back, the whole frame was on the floor?
Yeah.
And where was the fire at the time in the kitchen?
Around the window.
Had it got any further into the kitchen?
Just the main door sliding, the sliding door, because we had curtains and some decoration around the door, so those were on the fire.
And when was it that you noticed that the plastic around the window was burning?
When I came back to the kitchen.
Did you see anything happen to the fridge or the television that were there?
No.
So I'm getting to another topic now, and I wondered whether Ms. Jafari has been giving evidence for some 40 minutes, whether she might welcome a break, but if not, we can continue.
We'll ask her. Ms. Jafari, would you like to have a break now, or are you comfortable carrying on? What would you like to do?
I'm fine.
You all right for a bit?
Yeah.
Well, let's carry on for another 10 or 15 minutes. We'll have a break before long anyway.
Okay.
And if you need one, we'll make it clear and we'll have one straight away. All right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jafari. Could we look then, please, at the next page, page 5, I think, and let's just look at paragraph 19. In this paragraph, Mr. Jafari, if I summarise it, you describe leaving the flat and going into the lift area, and your father was there before you. Is that right?
Yes.
When you got into the lift area, were the lights still on?
Yes.
Could we look at your plan, please, just so that we can see just the layout? IWS 681, page 2. We can see that I think the entrance to the flat is just, I think, to what would be the left of the bathroom. But if you were standing outside your front door and you were in the lift area, would you be able to see into the kitchen of your home?
In the lift area?
Yeah, if you were outside the front door, would you be able to see what was going on in the kitchen if you were outside the flat?
No.
Would you? If we see there's a hallway running along there past the bathroom, is that where you'd have to be to start seeing what was going on in the kitchen?
No.
Where would you, if you wanted to know what was going on in the kitchen, where would you have to go?
You have to go further, just near the Margaret's bedroom, to see inside the kitchen.
Well, let's go back now to paragraph 19, please. Now, just to orientate ourselves, you're outside the flat in the lift area. You say there was no smoke there. Our neighbour Natasha, who lived in flat 82, was standing in the lobby. I told her there was a fire in our flat and she came into our corridor and saw the flames. When you refer there to a corridor, which corridor are you thinking of?
The main corridor in our flat.
And did you go with Natasha into that corridor?
Yeah, she went halfway, but she came out.
And how far did you go?
Just near to the toilet.
And so you saw flames from that position, did you?
Yes.
And can you describe what you were seeing at that time?
Because I closed the door when I came out before coming out. So I closed the kitchen door. It was a glass door, so I closed that. So I could see it was lighting up inside the kitchen.
So what you were able to look at was through the closed kitchen door, you were able to see what was still going on in the kitchen?
Yeah, it was fully bright. Something like very bright.
Did you have a sense of any smoke at all?
By that time, the alarm was on and it was smoke.
And was there any smoke in the corridor where you were?
Yeah, a bit, not much, but a bit.
And can you describe that smoke, please?
It was kind of like plastic burning. Not very strong, but it was very light, but it was, the fire alarm was on.
And what did the smoke look like?
I couldn't able to see because before leaving the flat, when I saw there was a fire around the windows, so I went quickly to the main power, so I turned off all the electricity in the house.
So it was dark in the corridor?
Yeah.
And so what you had was a sense of a burning smell?
Yeah.
And was that smell similar to that which you'd experienced earlier in the night?
I can't remember because I didn't stay that much time because I was too scared. So as I went with Natasha, I quickly came out.
What you say is that Natasha went back into her flat for some reason. She suggested that we go to her house and pulled my hand, but I said no and that we needed to go down and out of the building. I then went back into our flat to turn on the taps, but by now the flames had already reached the end of the kitchen corridor, so I couldn't do this. Just so that we can clear, how many times did you go back into your flat?
Twice.
So the first time was with Natasha into the corridor.
Just halfway, yeah.
And then you came out again and went back in a second time to try and turn the taps.
Yes, because I explained to my father, I think the fire, because at the first point I said to him, the fire won't enter the house because all the windows are double glazing. But when I saw the fire was already in the kitchen, so I realized the living room is also in the, there's a fire in the living room as well. So I thought the fire might come to the corridor. So I will go back to the bathroom and I turn on the tap water. So water will fall all over, so it won't catch fire.
And when you say that the flames had reached the end of the kitchen corridor, which corridor are you referring to?
The main corridor, the one we had.
Well, can we look at your plan again then, please? IWS, I think 682, page 2. Could we expand that a little bit, please? So I think the entrance into the flat is just next to the bathroom, is that right?
Yes.
And so you'd walk through that small area and then there's the hallway with doors that would open into the 3 bedrooms. And when you're referring to kitchen corridor, can you just point out what you mean by that?
Just the walkway, where the doors open.
So the hallway that runs past the bedroom doors?
Yep.
And you said in your statement the flames had already reached the end of the kitchen corridor.
Yes.
Which end are you thinking of?
Just the door, just down there in front of Maria's room, around the frame. Just down there. That's the kitchen. So that's Maria's room. Just down there, here. I couldn't able to see, that's the living room door. So just down there, on the right side.
So if we see that where it says Maria, there's a door there to...
In front of Maria's room, yeah. That's the kitchen door.
And so, were the flames still inside the kitchen or had they come out of the kitchen?
Inside the kitchen.
Was there any flames, had any flames reached anywhere else in the flat that you were aware of?
No, I didn't check. No.
But you didn't see flames in the hallway or near Maria's room?
No, because I closed the kitchen door. Can
we go back, please, to the statement again, page 4, and let's look at paragraphs, sorry, page 5, paragraphs 20, 21, please. Thank you. What you say in paragraph 20, Ms. Jafari, is that you tell us that you and your father then knocked on neighbours' doors, and a neighbour, Yusuf, from flat 85, came out and looked through the front door of your flat. Did he get very far into the flat at all?
No.
And were you with him when he was looking through the front door?
Yes.
And what could you see at that time?
I didn't look inside the flat. I was just at the door.
Were you aware of any smoke in the corridor, in the hallway of your flat at all at that time?
I can't remember, no.
Could you feel any heat at all from inside the flat?
No.
If we look at paragraph 21, and I'll read it if I may, but I remember that my father was panicking and sweating. His hands were shaking. Normally at such times he would take a spray that helps with the heart's blood flow. This could be needed at any time for my father, and so both Maria and I kept a spray in our bags in case my father needed it. I didn't have the spray on me because I had run out of the flat and I couldn't go back into the flat to get it because of the fire. I was worried about whether my father could make it down the stairs. Around this time, my father asked me why we didn't close the front door to our flat. I hadn't closed it properly because we didn't have the key. I thought the keys were in the flat. And again, just so we can be clear, what did your father mean by closing the front door properly?
That might someone go inside our flat.
So, just to understand how the door worked, if you pulled it hard, it would shut.
Yes.
But what your father wanted you to do was to lock the door.
Yes.
When you left the flat, did you actually pull the door tight too, or was it left partly open?
Partly open.
Can you remember how far open?
No.
Okay. Yes, Mr.
You've told us, Ms. Jafari, that you could hear the smoke alarm in the hallway of your flat.
Yes.
Whilst you were in the area of the lift, could you hear smoke alarms from anywhere else?
I can't remember. No.
And in the time that you were in that area, did you have any sense of there being smoke in the lift area or on the landing at all?
No.
My question was there any smoke at all that you could see on the landing and the lift area?
No.
Could you smell anything whilst you were there?
I can't remember, no.
Mr. Chairman, that may be a convenient time.
Does that suit you?
Yes, please.
Well, I think we'll all benefit from a short break now, Mr. Jafari. So we'll break for 10 minutes. I'm going to ask you to go with the usher in a moment. Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room. All right? And we'll come back at 11:05.
Okay.
All right? Would you like to go with the usher now? Thank you. Right, 11:05, please. Thank you. Could we have Ms. Jafari back, please? All right, Ms. Jafari, sit down, make yourself comfortable. You happy to carry on now?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rowett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Jafari, before I move on with your evidence, I just wanted to take you back to our the questions I was asking you about the kitchen window, and I want to do that by showing you a photograph. For those in the chamber, can I just say that this is a photograph that appears in Dr. Barbara Lane's report, and it is a photograph that was taken from the interior of one of the flats in the tower after the fire. So I think I'll just pause briefly, Mr. Chairman, if I may, if anybody wants to leave the hearing room. I don't think it looks as if.
I think it's right.
Can we have its reference BLAR 703 and then internal page 23, please. And could we just expand the image if we can? Ms. Jafari, if I explain, this isn't a photograph taken of your flat, but it's a photograph taken from flat 13, and it shows a kitchen window. Did your kitchen window look like that?
Yes.
And we see at the top there that there looks to be what appears to be a plastic panel with a fan in the middle of it. Is that what the fan and the vent looked like in your flat?
Yes.
So when you said earlier they were part of the same thing, is that what you meant, that they were together
Yes.
in that way?
Yes, because I was a bit confused. The vent and the fan was both together. They were not separate.
It's all part of the same
Yeah.
fitting.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Could we go back, please, to your statement? And it's IWS 683, page 5, at paragraph 24. In fact, could we please have paragraphs 23 and 24? Sorry. Ms. Jafari, you explained before the short break that you were worried about your father and his ability to walk down the stairs because of his health. And you tell us in paragraph 23 that you were also worried about yourself. And you say, because of my recent surgery, I was in a lot of pain and I was not strong enough to be able to help him down the stairs. If we look at paragraph 24, please. What you do in this paragraph is to describe the lift arriving on your floor. And you say that night only one of the lifts was working. The other one was out of service. It was the lift on the right side as you look at the lift that was working. The lift door opened and there were a few people standing inside. There must have been about 6 people in the lift, but I don't remember who the people were or exactly how many. Now, first question about the lift, please. Can you remember if the lift came down from a higher floor or whether it came up from a lower floor?
No, because we can't see from where it would come. It didn't have any sign. Because normally on the lifts they have sign like the lift is on the 10th floor, but I didn't see that.
So you can't help with where it came from?
Yeah.
Is that right? You can't help with that?
I can't remember, but I didn't see because I didn't press the button for the lift. It was another lady. She came from the stairways and she was kind of like panicked. So she was the one, she pressed the lift and she was waiting for the lift to come. So I wasn't. That time I was knocking on my neighbor door.
So this lady came onto your floor, is that
Yeah,
right?
she came to 11th floor, yeah.
And where had she come from?
I don't know.
So did she come through from the stairwell?
Yeah, because my father, he was standing on the stairs, so she just passed my father, and she came and she pressed the button for the lift.
And do you know what happened to that lady?
No, she came out with me on the ground floor.
So do you remember her getting into the lift with you at the same time?
She was the one, she said to me, let's go by the lift.
Now, if you're thinking about it today, do you have a clearer idea of how many people were in the lift when you got into it?
Well, no, I'm not sure, because that time I was very scared and panicked, but I remember there was a man in the lift when the lift came. I remember there was a man.
So if we look at paragraph 24 and you say there must have been about 6 people in the lift.
With us together.
With you, so the people who got in at the 11th floor was yourself,
Yes.
your father,
Yes.
and the woman who'd pressed the button.
Yeah.
And of the people that were in that lift when it arrived, the one memory you have is that one of them was a man.
Yes.
Can you remember anything else about what that man looked like?
He was not old and tall and healthy person.
Sorry, I didn't catch your last answer.
He was healthy and muscular man, something like that, I would say.
Can you remember what ethnicity he was?
No, I can't remember.
Do you remember if there were any, what anybody else who was in the lift when it arrived on your floor was wearing?
No.
Do you remember if there was anybody in the lift who had their head covered?
No.
We look, please, now at paragraphs 25 and 26. This begins that you say we got into the lift and it started to go down. So you've told us that there were 3 of you that got into the lift on the 11th floor. Was it quite crowded in the lift when you got into it, by the time you'd all got into it?
Not crowded, but it was kind of like looked full to me. I can't remember. Because the lift was quite huge and it had like capacity for 12 people.
And when the lift arrived and stopped on your floor, was there any smoke in the lift, or was it completely clear when you got into it?
It was completely clear.
Okay, let's look a little more at paragraph 25. You say, we got into the lift and it started to go down, but the lift reached only the 10th floor before it got stuck. The lights went off, dark smoke began to come into the lift. People began to panic and kept pushing the buttons. Eventually the doors opened. I tried to get out, but it was difficult. I realized that there was someone behind me who was holding on to me. I couldn't see who it was because it was so dark. I kept asking them to stop, but she was clinging to me and holding my legs. If I read a bit about part of paragraph 26, it was terrifying and the smoke was horrible. There was a strong and bitter chemical smell. I tried to speak, but it was too hard because of the smoke. There was a man banging on the door very heavily with his legs. He was pushing with both his legs. The only thing that I heard my father say in the lift was to tell me I should cover my mouth with my scarf. When the lift reached the 10th floor and stopped, do you remember if the doors opened straight away?
No, it was closed for a few minutes, not much, maybe 1 to 2 minutes.
And did the smoke that you describe in paragraph 25 start coming into the lift before the doors had opened?
Yes.
And can you remember how the smoke was getting into the lift?
From the door, I think.
So was it around the edges of the door?
Yes.
And we know that there are 2 doors in the lift that
Yes.
meet in the middle. Was it coming through the gap between the 2 doors?
I didn't see, but it was from the door.
You've described the smoke as dark and with a strong and bitter chemical smell. Can you remember anything else about the smoke at all?
No, that's it.
And how quickly did the smoke get into the lift?
It was very fast. It was very quick.
And the lights were already off in the lift by then, were they?
Yes, even the buttons of the lifts. It had lighting, but it went off.
And what physical effect did that smoke have on you?
I couldn't able to breathe out, and I couldn't able to see. So I closed my eyes, and I was coughing, and I feel like to vomit.
And how quickly did that happen?
After 1 or 2 minutes.
And did you hear what effect it was having on others in the lift?
Yes. They were shouting and coughing badly, and one, I think it was a man, I'm not sure, but someone went to the ground. It was on the floor.
When the lift doors opened, could you see into floor 10 at all?
No, it was fully dark.
What sense did you have of the conditions on floor 10?
It was full of smoke and dark.
And was it the same type of smoke as had come into the lift?
Yes.
You described trying to get out, but that someone was holding on to you. And you said, if we look at it, it's the last sentence of paragraph 25. She was clinging to me and holding my legs. How did you know that this person was a woman?
I'm not sure, because there was a woman. She was just right behind me or by my side, and someone was holding on my leg. I don't know. I couldn't able to see properly, but I think it's her or maybe that man. But that man was a bit far, just a bit close to the door, but she was just next to me.
And was this the same woman who was on your floor when the lift had arrived?
I think so, yeah, because I think she was the only one woman with me.
And what you do remember as well in paragraph 26 is that there was a man banging on the door very heavily.
Yes.
So was that, do you remember who that man was?
No.
Was he the same person that you'd seen when the lift arrived on floor 11?
I'm not sure.
We look now, please, at paragraph 27. You explained there that the lift doors then closed and the lift began going down again. You say the lift was very dark, there was still some smoke in the lift, and finally the door opened on the ground floor and everyone ran out. I ran out of the lift. As the lift was going down from the 10th floor, did it stop at any other floors on the way down?
No.
And you say there was still some smoke in the lift. Can you give us a sense of how much smoke there was in the lift?
It was packed with the smoke. It was a lot of smoke in the lift. But as it was going down, some of the smoke was getting a bit less than before. I was able to open my eyes.
Mr. Chairman, if I can now give a warning, I want to now show Ms. Jafari a number of CCTV images taken from a camera which filmed the ground floor lobby. Again, they may be distressing images for some who are here, and so I'll pause briefly just to see if anybody does need to leave. I think the position is that no one wants to do so.
Well, no one's moving at the moment. I think you can take it that
Thank you
people
very
are
much.
willing to see them.
Ms. Jafari, what I want to do now is to show you some CCTV images. Are you all right to view those images?
Yes.
And if you need to look at them, you'll find them at tab 3 of the bundle that's in front of you.
Just so that you know, there are pictures of you leaving the building through the lobby.
Yeah.
All right?
What I'm going to do is, before I ask any questions about these images, I'm going to show you some of them in sequence. And they start with a picture that's taken before the lift arrives on the ground floor. As we go through these images, I'm going to be giving what we're calling the adjusted time. And to explain to you and to others here what that is the best estimate that the inquiry can give with the assistance of our experts for the real time that appears on that, for that image. So I'm not going to ask you questions, but I'll just take you through them. So can we first of all have INQ 50423, please?
You'll probably, well, you can either use that one or you can use the small one if you find it better. Up to you, right?
So that again, just to explain it, this is the first image, the lobby before the lift arrives. The adjusted time for this image is 1:26 and 24 seconds. Could we have INQ 424, please? Adjusted time is 1:26 and 26 seconds. INQ 425. Adjusted time 1:26:29. INQ 426, please. Adjusted time 1:26 and 30. INQ 427. Adjusted time is 1:26 and 32. INQ 428, please. Adjusted time 1:26 and 35. INQ 429. Adjusted time 1:26 and 36. INQ 430. Adjusted time 1:26 and 36. And INQ 431, please. Adjusted time 1:26 and 40. Ms. Jafari, that sequence of stills shows the lift arriving, you're leaving the lift, and then you're leaving the building. I'm not going to take you through them all again, but I just want to take you back to some of those images to ask you some questions. Are you happy to continue?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. If we go back, please, to INQ 424, please. This is the second image that we looked at, and we can see that a woman is seen coming out of the lift, and we can also see black smoke. Now, we have to do this, but just to confirm for the record, that person is not you, is it?
No.
Now, you've described seeing a woman on the who came to the 11th floor and pressed the lift button. Does that picture help you at all to as to whether that was the person that you saw on the 11th floor?
I'm not sure, but maybe.
Do you remember now, looking at that image, whether does that help you to remember if that recalling that person being in the lift with you?
Kind of, yes. But I'm not sure, but there was a lady, yeah.
If we go to INQ 425, please. Now, this is the next person to come out of the lift, and someone wearing a shawl around their head. Can you confirm if that person is you?
Yes.
And can you tell us what was happening there?
I came out. I double-checked if someone is inside the lift.
And do you remember whether you could see anyone else inside the lift at that time?
No.
So there was no one in the lift?
No.
And we can see, if we look at that image, that there's black smoke at the top and also smoke lower down. Can you see that?
Yes.
Was that what the smoke was like when you were in the lift?
Yes, but much more thicker.
So, well, let me take that in stages. You say the smoke was thicker. Was it much thicker when it first started coming into the lift?
Yes.
And you told us there was still some smoke as the lift came down from the 10th floor.
Yes.
Do you think of it, when you think of that smoke, is it still much thicker than we can see there?
Because that time, when I was on the 10th floor, it was a lot more smoke. But as it came down, it got less. So I could able to breathe and I could able to open my eyes. But on 10th floor, I couldn't able to.
And when you say that you were able to open your eyes, did the smoke have any effect on your eyes?
Yes.
What did it do?
It was kind of like itchy and like I couldn't able to open it. It was kind of like burning something into my eyes.
And did that last?
A bit when I came out.
So when we see you in that image, was the smoke still affecting your eyes?
Yes.
And what was it doing to your breathing?
I was coughing and I feel like to vomit.
If we go, please, to INQ 426. And what we can see there, Miss Jafari, and that's you, and you appear to be following the lady and walking towards the door, is that right?
Yes.
What were you wanting to do at that time?
I wanted to go outside to check if my father came before me. Maybe I didn't see him when the lift was open. So I thought he came out before me and he went out. So I went to see outside if he's outside.
Could we now look, please, at INQ 429? And that's you now on the other side of the door,
Yeah.
in the main lobby of the tower, is that right?
Yes.
Is it possible for us to just expand that image so we can see Miss Jafari a little more clearly, please? Now, you appear, when we enlarge the image, to have something on your face. Can you describe what was on your face at that time?
I was crying and shouting and calling for my father.
And did you have was there any marks of the smoke on you?
Yes. As you can see, my face was full of mark of smoke and it was black.
So,
And even inside my mouth.
And what about your clothes?
They were a bit smoky, full of smoke.
If we go now, please, to INQ 431. You're now, I think this is the main entrance to the tower, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's you going through that entrance, is that right?
Yes.
So you've come out of the lift, you've come through the foyer, and you're going out through the main entrance. What were you thinking of doing at that time?
The first point, it was in my head to research for my father and my sister and my mother because they were already outside. But when I didn't see both of them and my father, I went back inside to go back to the 10th floor.
If I could, I'll show you another CCTV still. Mr. Chairman, of course, the previous warning that we gave stands, but I think we can carry on. But it's a new CCTV still, not one of the ones we've shown you before, Mr. Jafari. But it's INQ 433. And the adjusted time for this is 1:26 and 59 seconds. So if I just explain, just to help you, Ms. Jafari, it's 19 seconds after the last image that we looked at. And it's you coming back into the tower, is that right?
Yes.
And again, just to help us with, what were you going to do at this time?
I want to go back to the lift and go back to the 10th floor.
Now, if we look, please, at INQ 435, another new image. For the record, the adjusted time is 1:27 and 6 seconds. Mr. Jafari, again, I think we see you there. But can you tell us what's happening in this picture?
Because I didn't have the key, and to open the door, I need a fob. So I didn't have that. So I'm just shouting. I don't know whom I'm calling. I can't remember. But I was asking for a fob.
Because it's only with a fob key that you can get through to the lift, is that right? Yeah. And before we leave that image, if we look towards the right of it, you can see that there's just on the other side of the glass, a woman there with a dressing gown. Do you remember seeing her?
No.
Just two more CCTV images to show you, please. INQ 436. Adjusted time 1:26. I think that should be 1:27 and 9 seconds. And then INQ 437, please. 1:20 adjusted time 1:27 and 11 seconds. So this is you now going back out of the tower for a second time, isn't it?
Yes.
And was it after that second time that you left that you were able to find your sister Maria and your mother?
Yeah, she was just outside the building.
When you came out of the tower, did anyone ask you what flat you'd come from?
No.
Could we go back, please, to your witness statement? IWS 683, page 7, please. Expand paragraph 31, please. You say there, Mr. Jafari, when I came out, my mother and Maria were standing there. Maria didn't have the key fob for the stairs as she had given it to the fireman, and the policeman would not let me go back inside. We argued with the policeman about this, but he wouldn't let us in. So just again, so that we can understand your evidence better, was it one policeman that you were arguing with?
Yes, just in front door, the main front door.
And did that policeman give you any information about what was happening to the fire inside the tower?
No.
Do you remember giving any information to that policeman about your father?
Yes, I said to him, I want to go back because my father's inside.
But did you tell him where your father might be?
Not to him, no.
Did you tell him what flat you had left?
No.
But you're clear in your recollection that it was a male police officer, is that right?
Yes.
Well, can we stay on the same page, please, and just look at paragraphs 32 to 34? Just draw your attention, Mr. Jafari, to paragraph 32 first. I was feeling very sick by now because of all the smoke I had inhaled and because of the effects of the operation. I sat down under the walkway to Barrington Walk for a few minutes. There's a small garden area with a place where you can sit, and I stayed there. And then you describe your brother Farid and his wife coming, and then the paragraph finishes. I was just sitting for a time, and then the police came and they pushed us on further away from the tower. You go on in paragraph 33 to say that you were searching outside for your father. And then if we look at paragraph 34, I was feeling worse and worse. I was sick, and after 1 hour I started to lose feeling in my feet. My hands and feet turned blue. I was out of breath. I couldn't feel my hands and I couldn't breathe properly. I also had a sharp pain in my legs. Maria brought 2 people to see me and they put special aluminium plastic down for people to lie on. I was cold and shaking and they said I needed to go to the hospital. The ambulance was very far away though and I needed to walk to it. I remember that Maria said, "Don't close your eyes," but they kept closing. Now, you say, it's in paragraph 34 that you say that you started to lose feeling in your feet, but can we just take it in stages, please? How soon after leaving the tower did you start feeling unwell?
I can't remember exactly what time, but it was sunrise, before sunrise. So in June, normally sunrise come out around 3 o'clock in the morning. So I came out at 1:30, so maybe 3. So maybe after 2 or 1 hour. So.
And was that when your hands and feet started turning blue and you started
Yes.
feeling out of breath?
Yeah.
So up until then, had you been okay?
Yeah, we went back. It was in front of the sports center. So some people, our neighbors, they bought chairs and something. Yeah, it was chairs. And my mom, she was with me, so I was sitting there because I couldn't able to walk. So they provide some chairs for us and water.
And you say you were out of breath. How can you describe how difficult it was how you were finding it difficult to breathe?
I don't know. All of a sudden, I couldn't able to stand because I was like trying to go and look for my father because my sister and my brother, they were all like going around the building, but I was with my mother and I was standing because the police wouldn't let us to go near the building. So I said to my sister, "I don't feel my feet anymore," and I couldn't able to breathe.
And when you first started feeling unwell, which I think your evidence now is possibly about 3 o'clock in the morning, was there anyone offering medical treatment to people who were coming out of the tower?
The people of the tower, or the ambulance. I don't know. There was 2 men. I remember they came, and I think they were from the team of the ambulance. I don't know, but they took me to the ambulance.
So the 2 men the 2 people that you described Maria bringing, were those 2 men?
Yes.
And were they wearing uniforms?
I can't remember. I didn't see.
If we go, please, now just to the next page in the statement, just take a look at paragraph 36. Just want to pick up on the first sentence of that paragraph, please, Ms. Jafari, and it's what you've said is when you went to hospital, you say there was smoke in my throat. Can you just explain a little bit further, please, what you mean by smoke in your throat?
Because the doctor said that he can't see because he put kind of like a camera to my nostrils, and he said there is kind of like smoke into your throat, but not inside your chest.
And did he tell you what he could see? I mean,
Yes.
Did he describe the smoke? What did he say?
He said it's only through your throat and the pipeline, that's it. And he said he's going to give me an injection, that's it. And I had an oxygen for maybe an hour, and after that they took it off.
So up until you had oxygen at the hospital, what was your breathing like?
It was kind of like, because I was feeling like to vomit, so they had to control that.
Mr. Chairman, I've reached the end of my questions, but I think if I could just ask for a short pause,
Yes.
because I'm sure there might be some additional questions that others might wish me to ask.
Of course. Well, Mr. Rawat thinks he's finished asking questions, but we're going to have a short break so that he can check. So I'm going to ask you to leave us for about 5 minutes so that he can check whether there are more questions he needs to ask you, and then we'll come back and see how things go, all right?
Okay.
And don't talk to anyone, please, about your evidence while they're out of the room.
Okay.
All right? So you go with the usher and we'll come back at 1:45. Is that going to be all right, Mr. Rawat?
Yes. I think, well, can I ask for 10 minutes, I think?
10 minutes, all right, 10 to. 10-minute break, all right?
Okay.
I'd like to go with the usher, please. Right, 10 to 12, then, please.
Thank you, sir.
Well done, Mr. Rowett. Have you found some more questions?
Yes, with the assistance of a number of the lawyers in the room.
Yes,
we have.
I thought you might. All right. Could we ask Miss Jafari to come back in, please? All right, do sit down. I think there are a few more questions. All right? Yes, Mr. Rowett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Jafari, I've just got 4 things to ask you about. The first thing is about the, you mentioned that your door did not have a self-closing mechanism. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you told us that a housing officer had visited you in 2017. Did anyone come to fix the door at any time in 2017 before the fire?
No.
My next question is about the lift. We know you've told us that you got in on the 11th floor and then you got out on the ground floor. We've seen that.
Yes.
Did you get in on the same side and get out on the same side? Were the doors on the same side, do you remember?
You mean the lift?
Yes, the lift doors. When you would have come into the lift through one set of lift doors and then you would have left on the ground floor. Did you leave on the same side of the lift as you got out, or as you got in on?
Yes.
You've also told us that you remember a woman coming onto the 11th floor and pressing the button for the lift, and she got into the lift with you. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you help us at all any more with what that woman looked like?
I can't remember.
Do you remember whether or not she was wearing a hijab or had her head covered at all?
She didn't have a hijab. She didn't have any cover.
So you could see her hair. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And my last question is this. You've given us a written witness statement. You've answered all of my questions today. Above what you've put in your witness statement and what you've said today, is there anything else about the events of that night that you think it important for the chairman to know?
I don't think so, no.
Well then, Mr. Jafari, all that remains is for me to thank you once again for coming to give evidence to the inquiry today. It has been enormously helpful to us.
Thank you.
And I'd add my thanks to those of Mr. Rowett. It really is very important for us to hear what went on inside the tower during the fire. And so your evidence is very valuable. It's obviously a very frightening and distressing experience for you, made even worse, of course, by the loss of your father. So I'm sorry we've had to ask you to come and tell us about it again, but it is very useful. So thank you very much indeed.
You're most welcome.
All right. We'd like to go with the usher now, please. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, having
Yes,
now heard the evidence of Nadia Jafari, what I would like to do at this stage is put into the record the inquiry witness statement of her sister, Munira Jafari,
Yes.
who was, as we heard, left shortly before Nadia left the family home.
Yes.
I am going to draw your attention to some parts of that statement, but as was explained last week, and it's a point that relates to the witness statements that are going to be read into the record this afternoon.
Yes.
The statement in its entirety goes into the record and will be considered as part of the evidence before the inquiry in its entirety.
Yes.
The statement of Munira Jafari, if we deal with the formalities, is at IWS 50744.
Yes.
And at page 8 of that, if we go to that, we can see, Mr. Chairman, it's dated the 1st of June 2018 and signed with a statement of truth. There are no exhibits to the statement. Maria Jafari, as will be clear, lived at flat 86 with her parents Ali Jawar Jafari and Fatima Jafari and her sister Nadia.
Yes.
And their flat was owned by the Notting Hill Housing Trust. Can I take us back, please, to the first page? And if I could just draw your attention, Mr. Chairman, to paragraph 3, first of all.
Yes, thank you.
Maria says this about flat 86. My room was the most beautiful room in the flat. Nadia had decorated the walls with pictures of butterflies and flowers. Whenever guests came to stay, they had their photographs taken in my room. Although it was beautiful, it was small because it was made up of part of the original living room. Our landlord had separated half of the living room off to make an extra bedroom, and there was a long radiator that was half in my bedroom and half in the living room, with a gap in the wall separating the two rooms for the radiator to fit through. Can I move on in the statement and pick it up, please, at the next page, paragraphs 7 and 8. Don't need to say very much about paragraph 7, but if we just note that it begins in the afternoon on the 13th of June, I had been shopping. And then if I continue, Mr. Chairman, from paragraph 8, Maria writes, I remember that my father was very happy that evening. He really enjoyed the food and ate 2 plates of rice. Usually he ate only 1 plate. Often I would say that he should not eat too much because of his diabetes. But on that evening he was so happy and I thought that maybe he was supposed to eat more. After eating, we drank, and there's a redaction there, but we drank tea and started to watch TV. Continue over the next page, please. Paragraph 9. After we finished eating, my father was lying down on the floor and watching television. At about midnight, he took all of his medication and then went to lie down in the bedroom. His medication made him very tired, as one of the pills he took was supposed to help him sleep. Nadia was sleeping in my parents' room because she was unwell, and so my father went to sleep in my room. The beginning of paragraph 10 is redacted, but it continues. I was also going to go to lie down, but my mother said not to go to sleep. I took my phone and I laid down on the bed in Nadia's room for an hour. My mother stayed in the living room and turned off the TV. Go to paragraph 11. Maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, my mother came to me and said that she could hear things outside. The windows were closed, but my mother went to the window and opened it to see what was happening. And then we move on to paragraph 12. I went and joined my mother and looked out of the living room window. When the new windows had been installed, they had made them with windowsills that were much wider, and so we couldn't see down the side of the building easily, but I could see the shadow of the fire on a tree. It was like lightning. There were a few people around, but not many. As I looked further down, I could see the lights and 2 fire engines next to Barrendon Walk. At that time, it was at about 00:45. In the next paragraph, Maria continues, my mother said we should go downstairs. At first, I said that I didn't want to, because I thought it was just a small fire. But I agreed to go with her because she insisted. We closed all the windows in the flat. I went into my room where my father was half asleep, and I got my coat. But I didn't say anything to my father because I thought he might panic, and I did not think that the fire was serious. I went to Nadia's room to wake her. She was annoyed that I woke her and told me to go away and that she didn't care about the fire. She had recently had surgery and was recovering. And paragraph 14 continues, I left with my mother. We took the keys from my father's coat pocket next to the door. I went outside and waited while my mother went back into the flat to wake up my father again. While waiting for my mother to come back, I pressed the button to call the lift and I opened the door to the stairs. There were a few people running down the stairs. I spoke to a man I know. He asked me what was happening downstairs. I said I didn't know, just that there was a fire. He had 2 children with him and his wife, and he was carrying nappies because his baby was small. I went back onto the landing and shouted to my mother to ask if she was going to come, and suggested that I could go alone. She said to wait for her and that she would come with me. In the next paragraph, paragraph 15, Maria states, "On the landing, I also saw someone I did not know come from our neighbour Natasha's flat. I now know that the man is Natasha's boyfriend. He asked me what was happening. I explained that we had seen a fire, and he just laughed and went back into his flat. No one knew at that time that it was as serious as it was." The next paragraph, paragraph 16, reads, "When my mother came out onto the landing again, the lift was open. I said that we should go by the stairs, but she needed to go by the lift because it was difficult for her to go down the stairs. Inside the lift, there was an old lady and a young boy from the top floor who I recognized but did not know. He wasn't worried or anything. No one was panicking, and I couldn't smell or see any smoke. The lift was working normally, and it stopped on the 3rd floor, where there was an Iranian lady who was panicking and was saying, 'Fire, fire,' and was closing her flat door. Still, though, there was no smoke. No one got into the lift on the 3rd floor, and the door opened again on the ground floor. I understand that I'm recorded on CCTV as leaving the lift area at around 1:20. Mr. Chairman, that's all I propose to read from that statement,
Right.
but as I've said, it goes into the record in its
Yes, thank you.
entirety. I think we've gone a little faster this morning than we expected,
Yes.
and that is the evidence for this morning. There will be a further witness who's coming to give evidence this afternoon. So if you're content, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask if we could just now rise. Content might not be the right word, but just now rise and to start again at 2 o'clock with that witness.
Yes. Well, I'm sure people can use the extra hour doing other things. So if the next witness has been asked to be here for 2 o'clock, I think it would be a good thing, whether she's here or not, to break now. So I will rise now, and we'll resume with the witness at 2 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Mr.
All right.
Chairman.
Thank you very much.